Take two. Right, welcome back to another video. I'm going to shoot through a lot of questions that you left in the video that I'm going to link up here. If you haven't watched it yet, why the heck not? It's probably one of the most insightful videos I've ever put out. I'm going to do a rapid fire of the questions now, with Charlie reading the questions out for me. It's quite a few, so we're going to try and keep the answers to like under 60 seconds. So let's go.
What percentage of macronutrients do you set yourself, or would you recommend?
I generally go for a 60-30-20 split. 60 carbs, 30 protein, 20 fat. But like asking me to name my macronutrients like that is like asking like to unravel the secrets of the universe made from a ball of string. It varies from day to day, so I can't give you a definitive answer.
What about 2021? Still staying teamless?
Still staying teamless. If you call me riding for a team, being on a team, I'm still technically riding for myself. But if I can guest anywhere, if anybody needs me, you know, I mean, as some of you have said in the other comments, I'd be ashamed to waste all that power. Not that I'm wasting it, but yeah, I have technically got my own team. So yeah, maybe I am, maybe I'm not.
Interesting you mentioned cutting your time spent in zone 2. Can you explain why? I would have thought for the amount of climbing you do that the ability to ride high zone 2 all day would suit that. Or are you using the polarised aspect to boost your lower zone powers as a side effect, which in turn just gets easier to ride without training them? Well,
yes. Two-part question. The second part, yes, sort of, because that's what happens. The first part of the question, if you're road racing, you almost never spend any continuous amount of time in zone 2. If you're in the breakaway, if you're riding on the front, if you're sat in the back of the peloton, just taking it easy, drafting, you probably either go in between like zone 1, zone 3 or zone 6. So it kind of, hence why it's interesting when you look at 2020 this year, a lot of my riding, my power distribution stayed the same. Why? Because I'm doing Swift racing, and that has almost an exact replica to my outdoor racing, just because of my fitness level. We're running out of camera battery now. Typical. Next.
Do you think you'd ever join a Continental team again, as your power numbers are a lot higher than they were in 2014, so surely it would make sense to go back and smash the races?
I suppose it does make sense if you look at it. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to do things with that power. With great power comes great responsibility, as someone famous said. But I don't necessarily see. I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, if I was at those races now that I did then, I mean, man, I'd be like, be able to conserve more energy. I'd be able to like recover quicker. I'd be able to attack more. I'd also be able to like use like tactics more, because obviously I wouldn't be going as hard, because my general fitness would be a lot higher. It's just the way the cookies crumble. The teams have folded, the teams that I was in folded, then I left to go to another team. I was left with like a bitter taste in my mouth, and then like, you know, things just kind of happened the way they happened. Yeah, if I was to go back, it might not be the same, you know, I might not get the same opportunities if I go back. Swings and roundabouts. What I'm doing now personally, I'm sure you find quite interesting anyway, because I'm using my power to serve a different meaning other than just racing my bike.
A few very knowledgeable coaches have told me in the past that weight loss correlates well with the high volume weeks, even if you also eat more. Did you see any patterns like that with body fat and time spent riding?
Yeah, quite a few people see that. One person actually I had a phone call with about 2 days ago has had the exact same thing. Does a lot of volume, has a very high chronic training load, CTL, on Training Peaks, so fitness. Yes, I mean, obviously generally you burn like a heck of a lot of calories. You do a lot of work in that time period as well. also it goes both ways, because like the more you do, actually, the more efficient you become, then the less hungry you become, and the less you naturally eat during the day, and therefore kind of I guess you lose body weight, not per se more naturally or more gradually, but you do it sometimes without thinking about it. So it's very common.
Okay. When you talk about yourself being an introvert towards the end of the video and not putting yourself forward when you were feeling good in a race, don't you think that was down more to immaturity due to your age and perhaps inexperience at the time?
Yeah, it is down to immaturity. Well, it's down to like being very young in the sport. I think that's one thing a lot of people slightly miss, is they sometimes assume, rightly or wrongly, that I've been in the sport since I was like 8 or something, and I've been racing therefore for almost 20 years. I haven't. Even when I did start racing professionally in like 2018, like to be brutally 2018, when I was 18, to be brutally honest, I didn't really know what I was doing for maybe 3 years, even though I was being taught and I was subtly learning things, but things don't necessarily click straight away. So it wasn't until I was 21, 22 that I really started to kind of grow into it, and hence why it wasn't until I was 23, 24 when we went to these bigger races and everything started to click. Lots of things started to click, so I was therefore able to gain more confidence and stand up for myself, and the coaches and the managerial staff were starting to see that, and they were starting to push for it. So things just come naturally sometimes.
Do you think you can improve your FTP any further?
Yeah. It probably sounds ridiculous. What I'd like to do, I'd like to improve it. Ideally, I'd like to get to an FTP. I'd like to get a 20-minute power of 7 watts per kilo. I'd like to not bust a myth, but I want to set myself a goal, a permanent goal. Doesn't matter when it's achieved, but it's there. And as ridiculous as it sounds, it's still going to be there. Whether I achieve it or not, doesn't matter to me. 7 watts per kilo for 20 minutes, and then that's like 420 watts maybe. If my FTP then turns out to be, say, 390, 400, so be it. Will I be able to do that? Probably not for an hour. In fact, highly likely that I won't be able to. But that's not the goal. Secondary goal, not just going down the FTP rabbit hole. I'd like to be able to operate at a much higher power output for a longer period of time before exhaustion. So it's kind of down the same kind of avenue as FTP, but not directly, not directly FTP linked. I know FTP is a funny one, because lots of people talk about it. Lots of people don't really give a stuff about it, because there's lots more things that actually characterize your fitness other than FTP. But certainly think that set myself a goal FTP wise. I think I can nudge you a little bit more.
Having come off the couch in April, my FTP is climbing reasonably fast still. I'm currently 66 kilograms, but could probably drop to around 60 kilograms, 177 centimeters. I feel like I should wait for my power to start to plateau a bit before I try to drop weight, to try and be a bit more robust whilst I build my power. Is this the right approach? My weight dropped off quickly from 78 to 66 in the first couple of months, and I would need to focus much more on diet to drop further.
I think I've answered your question there a little bit. So I wouldn't necessarily focus on weight yet. Still, you've obviously dropped a load, but I think something's still going on with your power there. Even if it plateaus, even if it has plateaued for a short period of time, I'd still bear with it. You'd be surprised on what another 3 months could do. 3 months seems like a long time, but actually it's not. But I would just be mindful about that weight loss, because there's quite a lot of weight loss. If you had it to lose in the first place, then kudos on you. But rapid weight loss is definitely not advised. But if your weight plateaus now, that's not such a bad thing, because if anything, your body's now getting used to kind of being at that level, and when it does eventually kind of plateau off, you might then see that next step in, you know, power increase.
Hi Ed, did you change anything special going from 2018 to 2019? I'm thinking about your injury after your crash in Canada that year. I have had an injury this season and could not reach the fitness I had last year. Already now I'm having problems reaching something close to that. Can I expect to get back at my level in 2021 and maybe do PBs again?
Yes, answer the question. What did I change? I actually started to coach myself. So obviously a big change is the crash. Significant crash, didn't break any bones. Some of you asked actually what was the crash. I won't explain it now, maybe I'll explain it for a proper video, because still something that affects me to this day a little bit. But I'll even show you the scars as well. I changed coaches, so I basically coached myself. I had that crash, which then had a knock-on effect with confidence and everything else. I had to rebuild everything, and hence why coaching myself allowed me to do it a little bit better, more like with more creativity. More fun was introduced, more fun aspects of training. And also I missed out on the Tour of Britain, which was actually starting in Pembrokeshire Country Park, which was like, I don't know, a 20-minute ride away from my house. So like to start a Tour of Britain, I'd never started a Tour of Britain, I'd never done a Tour of Britain in my life in like 7 years of riding for that one team, because it was always better riders. There's all these little things that kind of add up to like motivation, you know, just get your backside in gear, you know, wanting to be better, like lots of things that happened in like a very short space of time, maybe 3 months. I was actually going, that was my best year of racing there, so you know, lots of things happened that kind of sent me on a wave of emotions, and therefore I think kind of changed me going forward. And I think as well this period now with this illness, which some of you don't know, like COVID basically, I think that could be a potential for another gain. I don't want to make that sound corny, but you have like the setback like I did 2 or 3 years ago, build, go really well, another setback which is like very minor, and then go again. So sometimes those things can be blessings. I think we've got a lot left on that.
Question, if you could do your pro years again, what would you do differently?
Everything that I listed at the start of the video, where I pointed up there to that video that I did, the one I'm responding to, the 7 years video. Right at the end, the takeaways, that's what I do differently.
Regarding the 6.4 watts per kilogram for 30-minute argument, I know you're a user of WKO5, and obviously the idea of FTP being hour power is a myth, as FTP has a wide range of time to fatigue, i.e. some riders TTE is 45 minutes, it could be 75 minutes over an hour. Considering these fit files are obviously in WKO5, what FTP is generated on the software, and what is your TTE? That would paint a much clearer picture. I mean, oh my gosh,
okay,
that's so hard to read.
Quick explanation then in 60 seconds. So WKO5 is like a sister analysis software to Training Peaks. You've got to pay for it, obviously, but it does offer an in-depth look into what you're doing. Time to exhaustion is something that's tracked in there, which kind of gauges a little bit through multiple ways how long you can actually hold your MFTP for, which is modeled FTP, which is derived from like your previous best efforts from the last 30 days, 90 days, 365, 1095, like you can go as far back in the past as you want. So my time to exhaustion was actually probably, I think it was like 45 minutes, around that ballpark. It definitely wasn't over 45 minutes for 385 watts. I think that back then, I think that was acceptable. I think I could have done that. Definitely don't think could have done it for the hour, but I think I mentioned that anyway. So yeah, that's what WKO5 had my TTE at, which was pretty, yeah, still pretty high. You know, 45 minutes for that level of effort, which would be 6.4 watts per kilo, is a heck of a long time. But that's obviously fresh. You know, don't go saying I'm going to win the Tour de France.
At what age did you know that cycling was your passion? Did you participate in other sports before cycling?
Yeah, I played football for a number of years before cycling. I had trials with a number of local teams, like Continental FC, Swansea Academy, but then eventually turned to cycling. I didn't think, let's go and ride the Tour de France, let's go and race the best races in the world, because even when I signed pro for Ravagona GLT, I didn't really know. I didn't know John Herity, didn't know the riders, didn't know like the teams, didn't have any idea. Like, background in cycling was very basic. Basically, whatever I picked up in my local cycling club, which was, very little. It's just a very small community bubble. And what I watched on TV, which was basically the Tour de France. But I never got inspired by the Tour de France. Tour de France didn't inspire me, as weird as that sounds.
Looking at your FTP over the past 4 years, it started at 371, went down to 370, up to 372, and then jumped up to 385 watts. What did you feel is the biggest contribution to this jump?
The races I did. Some minor injuries and crashes. I feel like I'm just repeating what I said in that video a little bit, but definitely like the last kind of year and a half, a lot more quality over quantity. And I know quantity has its place, but it comes down to being specific to what you're training for. So I think possibly where I was in my timeline, so being 8 years deep, 7 years deep into really, really deep training, maybe it was the time for me to do shorter hours, higher intensity, and that's what's brought on the response. A lot of training, a lot of what you see is a lot of it experimental. So me just saying that like X, Y, and Z caused this, 9 times out of 10 I'd be making it up, because I wouldn't really know. There's so many things that contribute to the fitness that sometimes you just got to think, well, in fact I think everything contributed to it. It's in some way, shape or form.
Any chance you could still go World Tour, and how would you give that a shot?
I would have to network. To be honest, I think a couple of people have actually reached out to me in the last 6 months that I never thought I'd hear from, which is pretty cool. And I think that a lot of that is down to YouTube. However, going World Tour at this level, with everything going on, and the fact that I'm so transparent, I don't know how that would look, personally. Plus with all the sponsors I have already that support me privately, which I'm very grateful for, it's a difficult one to foresee is the future. But I mean, I obviously like to, just to see. Maybe Ineos could do what they did with Cam Worth and just draft him in for like a couple of races or 6 months and then sack me off.
How much do you think genetics affects reaching a peak performance, or do you think it's just a case of putting the work in?
Well, that question got like quite a good response. People saying that genetics play a massive part in it. Difficult to see where genetics played a part. I've not had any lab tests or anything like that. Something I do want to pursue. Obviously, I can't pursue it in current times, but I do want to pursue that because there's obviously something going on physiologically. I think we'd agree. Whether that's down to genetics, whether that's down to training. I've definitely trained very optimally, I would say, over the last 8-9 years, and that's definitely paid off. Now, when I kind of mention and throw around the 7 watt per kilo for 20 minutes thing, it triggers a lot of people, and they get very kind of Alberto Contador eating tainted steak kind of thing on me. But I think hard work has a lot of, not hard work, but smart work, lucky work, because a lot of the stuff I've done is contributed to the races I've done, and therefore, you can't almost simulate those races in training. So it's a difficult one to foresee, but I'd say there's something genetic there, but I don't know where it's come from. I can't think of anybody in our family, quite frankly, in recent history that has done anything to this level. So I don't know.
That's it for all the hard-hitting questions.
Is that it? Wow. So that was, see if I can cut it down to below 20 minutes. That gives me 45 seconds to play for. Thank you so much for watching. Don't watch it in 2x speed because it's going to be far too fast because I tried to rattle through the questions as quick as possible. Pardon my my fuzziness. You know, obviously I'm still a little bit ill, so we're fighting through. Thanks for watching. Give the video a thumbs up and share it with somebody who you find useful. See you in the next one.
Can I cough now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Someone come save us.